Welcome to the Open Books Podcast, where we discuss all things going on in the real estate industry, helping you take the road less traveled to real estate success, guiding you to the top 10%. I am here with my co-hosts Casey Tudor and Brooke Massey. I'm Curtis Haddock, and it's so great to be here with you guys.
Thanks for having us this morning, Curtis.
Yeah.
Thanks for being a guest on my podcast.
Yeah. It's a pleasure. It's my pleasure.
My pleasure. Oh, like Chick-fil-A?
Yeah.
I don't even think you were thinking that, were you?
No, I was.
Have you guys seen that?
Yeah, that's what I always think about. And
That
I always want to
video?
show, every time I go to Chick-fil-A, I want to show them that video.
The reel that we watched?
Yeah.
where
Just
the
send
guy
it to all of
doesn't
them?
Say it.
Yeah, you got 20 seconds. I want to show you a funny video.
Yeah. Because you didn't say, my pleasure. Look what happens to
What
you.
Yeah.
if they like started sweating
Have you
and
seen
they're
that
like,
video?
yeah, you showed me. And then I saw it again. What if like you said, like, give me 20 seconds and they start sweating? Like, I only have 60 seconds left to
Yeah.
complete this order.
Yeah.
The flash in the car is pretty good.
I guess
guys
you should
notice that?
probably-
Yeah, that's the best part.
Explain the video because it is pretty funny.
So there's a Chick-fil-A video, which we are now getting sponsored by Chick-fil-A.
Better.
And you guys everyone knows you got to say my pleasure. They say my pleasure. And so it's a reel that says when a Chick-fil-A employee forgets to say my pleasure. And they're taking this guy's order in a drive-through, and the customer goes, "Thank you," and the guy doesn't say anything. He just goes, "Okay, yeah, no problem," and then he's like, and then a car pulls up behind him. He's like, oh, wait, my pleasure. I mean, my pleasure. I said my pleasure, right? I did say my pleasure, right? And like these guys sneak up behind him
In suits.
in suits, and they cover his head with a bag, and they pull him into the car. And another employee comes, and then in the background you can see a flashbang in the car, like he got shot. And the car drives off, and the other employee, goes, "Okay, pull ahead to window 1 or whatever." And he goes, "What happened to the other guy?" And he
Yeah.
goes, "What? There was no other guy.
Yeah, there's no other guy.
What other guy?" and
he's like, "My pleasure."
He goes, "Thank you, my pleasure,"
It was pretty good.
and then drives off. It's
I
pretty
heard
good.
if you beat them to saying my pleasure, that you get your meal for free.
What?
I haven't tried it.
Okay, I'm totally going there for lunch.
We should try it, Casey.
Well, like-
we'll make our own video.
You just like start your order with my pleasure.
No.
You have to they have to say thank you to you, I guess, or like what would they be saying? Thank
I don't
you?
know. I heard it somewhere. Someone said that if you beat them to say my pleasure,
This
or
is
if
how you
they
do it.
forget and you
This is how
say
you
it,
do it. Whenever they hand you the credit card reader and they say, "Okay, just go ahead and put your card in here," you say, "My pleasure."
ooh.
Oh, nice.
We just got Chick-fil-A probably won't want to sponsor us now because
They're about
we
to change
just
their
gave
policy.
them. We just gave everyone their secret
If
policy.
that is so. Actually, if you guys know, comment in the comments.
If that's true.
Somebody
true.
try it, and if it doesn't work,
Then you'll look stupid.
You weren't watching this podcast. You were watching the Joe Rogan one.
Yeah,
That's
I'm just kidding.
and now we're
I'm waiting for my
sponsored by Joe
neuro
Rogan.
gum. Speaking of Joe Rogan, I'm waiting on my neuro gum.
Oh man, I'm so excited. I was gonna ask.
Not Alpha Brain.
No, not Alpha Brain. I know he pushes that too.
He's got to have a stake in that.
Yeah, of course. But you can't trust anyone.
No,
But I do feel like Joe Rogan
even us. No, I'm just kidding.
pushes. You're right. I do feel like he pushes products he believes in, and I feel like he's probably at the level where he can do that.
Yeah,
But
because he's
then
like,
again, anyone will do anything for money. But NeuroGum has a lot of chemicals in there that are natural.
NeuroGum, okay.
Yeah, that fire off your brain for dopamine and all that kind of stuff naturally instead of
yeah.
caffeine and all those.
I was
dirty
on
chemicals.
TikTok randomly, and Joe Rogan had a random, and it was about that NeuroGum and quitting energy drinks, and I was like, "Oh, Casey," and I sent it to Casey. And I
2
was like,
months.
2 months without
2 months
energy
without
drinks.
an energy drink.
I love that because
Yeah.
last week was
Thank you.
the habits episode, and I was just re-listening to it in the kitchen, and I was like, "Oh, look at
And I
we were
think
just
about it-
having all these
I
conversations."
think about it every day.
Think about what?
Energy drinks.
Energy drink.
So I guess, man, I just ordered you a case of energy drinks for Christmas.
Oh, don't.
Why do you think it was so hard to quit?
Well, I mean, as soon as it's weird. As soon as I would drink one, like start drinking it, like once it hits the lips, it's like my day instantly gets better.
It's satisfying.
I know what I used to drink energy drinks.
Yeah, and it tastes good. It's cold, and then it literally does wake you up. But I think looking back, it's like I'd been doing it for 20 years. And
Yeah.
I think it's just time, you know. And
Yeah.
It never woke me up, but it it's just like drinking coffee. I mean, it just you look forward to it first thing like in
Uh-huh.
the morning, and it's like it helps you get excited about something,
Right.
because it's like you're tired and you don't want to go to work all the time, but you at least can look forward to that drink.
Yeah, and I agree. And an addiction though is like, I heard Steve-O with Jackass say this one time, and it's like it makes sense. Like
Well, he
alcohol,
went through some
like
intense stuff.
alcoholism is not the alcohol is not the problem.
Yeah.
It's the symptom of the problem, and it's the outlet to cover up being comfortable in your own skin,
That
being
makes
able
sense.
to be who you are, and expose yourself and your traumas, and it's just a way to cover it. And they just chose alcohol to do that.
Yeah.
And so he's like, I never felt like an alcohol until I quit drinking it, because then I have to like look at myself every day.
That makes sense.
And he's like, I think about alcohol every day because I could just cover up anything I want anytime if I just go drink again.
So what is energy drinks covering up for you? Your
Well-
tiredness?
Well, I think it's not exactly related, but I do think like, it makes up for lack of exercise, lack of sleep.
Yeah, it's just
things.
different.
I'm trying to balance something that's not balanced.
Like that you're not doing that. You can do it naturally.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Speaking of balance,
I guess that makes me a workaholic, because I use work to cover up everything.
Sure.
Excuses for stuff.
Yeah,
But
man.
yeah, speaking of balance, Brooke,
let's talk about
Man, that was a great segue right there.
Yeah,
we
it
always
was.
seem to make it work.
yeah, we do.
well, let's talk about real estate, family, and sacrifice, balancing ambition with personal relationships.
I really like this topic because it's so important. You have to figure out your work-life balance.
Well, I feel like not enough people talk about this, and I feel like this is like a pretty huge part to your real estate career because you got to take on clients, and they call you at late nights, and they want to go show houses, they want to list their house, and they're kind of demanding sometimes. We can make our own schedule, but at the same time, we also have a business that we have to grow and thrive. But on the backside of all of that, how does that affect our family, our friends, our coworkers? I mean, anything, your hobbies we could even throw in there.
Yeah, I mean, we can make our own schedule. It's about knowing what a boundary is, how to set boundaries, and you have to adhere strictly to those boundaries. And the problem is that we break our own boundaries because of the fear of losing the client, or losing income, and not being able to accomplish our goals, or whatever the case may be. And I really think that it's fear driven more than anything when we break those boundaries.
Yeah, and then there's two ways that you feel after when you have a boundary. It's like if you honor it, you're either going to feel guilty
Yes.
that you didn't go show that house, or you're going to feel empowered. And I think so. That's like another layer that you have to work with when you say. And I think too, like you can bend on that stuff, but I would say like, you better, if you're going to set a boundary, honor it like at least 80% of the time.
Well,
So
yes.
you're at least consistent in that way.
I think learning how to talk to people too is huge. Like I have my do not disturb goes off at 7:30. Like for the most part, I have that as a boundary for myself and for my wife, because we need time alone, and I need to shut off, and so I can actually go to sleep too. That's a big one. But having conversations with clients, like you don't have to tell your client like, oh, don't call me after 7:30. But there's different ways that you can have conversations, if that makes sense, to make it to where you don't seem like a bad guy. You're still giving top customer service, but you're still being able to balance like your own life.
If someone thinks I'm a bad guy because my do not disturb, I tell them my do not disturb goes off, that's my family time, and they think I'm a bad guy for that. Like, what am I going to get done for you that at 7:30 at night that I can't get done at 8 o'clock the next morning?
100%.
And so if they think I'm a bad guy, then they're the bad guy, because they need to be more understanding, because people don't, a lot of people, most of the time it's other agents don't realize that it can wait till the next morning. I think most clients and customers do recognize and
Absolutely.
understand that it can wait until the next morning, and we fail to give those customers credit for knowing that. And I always look back on it. I put myself in as the customer, and I'm like, okay, if I was seeking a service and it was 7:30 at night, I don't think I have ever had the expectation that I could reach out to that person or any individual and expect that they're going to be available for me at that time ever.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to get mad at them for not being available unless they told me that they'll be available at that time. Or I can see getting frustrated if there's supposed to be a 24-hour hotline for some sort of company, but usually those are when that exists, it's a big corporation that you're not going to be able to get through to
shift,
a person.
Yeah.
Their answering service.
Yeah, and so it's just like I might get frustrated at times, like if it's like 5:30 and I call my doctor's office and it's the answering service, like you just said, and they're like, "Oh, they've gone home for the day," and I'm like, "Dang it!" But I'm like, when I sit back and think about it, I'm like, "Yeah, okay, the workday ended at 5. That's on me for not making it a priority before 5 o'clock."
Yeah.
And if they do get mad at me, then again, you just have to be calm and patient with them and understanding that these are just emotions that they're feeling and maybe stress, and just talk it through with them and tell them like, I understand that you're feeling this way, but I'm going to take care of it today. So there'll be no harm, no foul. I was with my family last night. I was doing X, Y, and Z. I hope that you can understand that, and let's move on. And I think again, with just service providers, independent contractors, we just don't give the client enough credit that they're going to understand.
Oh yes. Oh yeah.
Well, and you got to start that like from the beginning. In the first initial. I mean, just like list all of your boundaries up front. But it's like last night. I told this lady. I said, okay, we can go look at houses in the morning after my podcast, and she said, great. So she moved her nail appointment from 12 to 9, and so we're going to go look at 10:30 after this. But I told her because it was 6 o'clock, and she's like, yeah, I'll send you some stuff, but I know how that goes. It's like, don't send me stuff at 10:30, 11 at night.
Yeah.
Expecting me to set so I said, please send them by 9 p.m. so I can set them up so I can notify the seller.
Yes.
And
simple stuff like that is like people need direction.
Yeah, they do.
Especially with buying a house, they have no idea.
This is the one that drives me crazy. They send you a house and go, what do you think of this one? Well, what do you mean? What do I think? What do I think about what? Like,
I'm like,
are you asking me to do are you asking me to run comps? Do you want me to tell you about the area?
Are you saying, would I buy it?
Would I buy it?
I'm usually like, it's cute. Let's go look at it.
Would I like the furniture in it that you're not even going to get? Like, yeah.
I do want to refute one thing that you said, Casey, about the boundaries, and adhering to them 80%. I think you should adhere to your boundaries. If you're going to set a boundary, I think you should adhere to it 99% of the time.
Oh, I agree.
I think it should be a very, very rare.
Okay, occurrence. Fine, 95%,
99.
He's like, I agree, but still disagree.
Yeah, I understand like bending, but I feel like it should be a very rare occurrence, because if you are to bend 1 out of every 5, that would be your 80%, right?
Yeah.
Then it's a slippery slope where it's like, okay, this one is a higher price point, so I am going to, bend my boundary for this one time, and then it just starts this slippery slope of behavior, and you start to a new routine, and then your family starts to get used to you doing that, and now you've developed.
But only 20% of the time they get used to it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that is true.
But what I'm saying is I don't think you can keep it at 20%. I think once you start bending the rules for your boundary and breaking your boundaries, it's a slippery slope to where that boundary a slippery slope to where that boundary no longer exists,
because you start creating a little tiny habit
and excuses,
like we kind of talk about. Yeah.
Well,
as soon as you make one decision, then it kind of makes...
For example, I'd gotten home one night at like 6:37 and it's family time. It was. Now this is kind of why I say like this is flexible because we didn't have like a plan. Like we didn't plan to play a board game or anything in particular. And a client called me and said, "Hey, the house down the street went up for sale. We want it." And I said, "So when do you want to go see it?" And they said, "I mean, tomorrow's fine." Well, I knew what that meant. They wanted to see it now. So I went and showed it to them and they bought it. And then we sold their house and I made like 15 grand.
Yeah.
You know, and so I showed one house and I made that kind of money and sold 2 houses with one showing.
My argument to that would be, you would have still made the 15,000 if you showed it tomorrow.
Maybe because
I
they had already called.
video.
They had already called the listing agent.
I remember this story, and yeah, I mean it's always a maybe for sure. I mean anything can happen.
Well,
They
and
were
I
repeat
think-
clients. They were repeat clients, and they were good to me the first time. And I knew it was going to be pretty easy. Like I knew that they actually did want that house because they'd been eyeing it, and then it just happened to come up for sale.
Well, and like part of me does agree with you, Casey, because like certain instances like that, and you said that you didn't necessarily have anything planned, and as long as you have good communication with your family, sometimes it's like for me when you told me that story just now, it's like, oh, I can just go knock it out really quick and be done with it,
Yeah.
and focus on other stuff.
It
the
probably
next
saved
day.
me 4 or 5 nights of showing houses otherwise because
Yeah.
they lost that one because it was multiple offer.
Yeah, but to Curtis's point too, like you still need to have that time. You know,
I want to play devil's advocate a little bit because even if you don't have any plans, like, just from having a family, like sometimes you don't just have to have plans. Like that time means something to your kids, to
Absolutely.
your spouse, and so. Leaving, and I'm not saying that this is what happened with your situation, Casey. I'm just saying,
Yeah, it's all over.
I just want people to think about, if you're going to, bend the rules or break your boundary, make sure that it is a situation like what Casey is talking about, where, that it cannot wait till tomorrow. And like that's what I'm talking about. Like if you set the expectation with the clients, they still call you and they still want to go look. That means it's important to them. If you've had, and then that also means you got to set the expectation with your spouse that, hey, I'm going to set this boundary, but in the event that something comes up and I make an attempt, my first step is going to make an attempt to stick to my boundary. And then if I realize and recognize that I can't, or I'm going to miss out on this $15,000, then you're going to go, right?
Right.
And that brings me to a point where I truly believe if you are in real estate and you are married, you have to have a supportive spouse.
oh gosh, yes.
This industry and career is so taxing, and it takes a toll on your relationship, on your family, on your time, and if you have a spouse that is constantly like on you about the time that you're away and the nights and the weekends and all that stuff, like. Or you're in the middle of dinner and the phone rings and you pick up the phone because you see who's calling and you have a deal that you need to keep together or something like that. And there were times where I had to step away from date night, and take a 30-minute phone conversation.
Yeah, and it sucks because it's like if you don't do that, even though you kind of need to, like that's all you're going to think about for the rest of the day night.
Right.
And people don't understand that part of it. It's like, and first of all, your partner has to. That's not going to be something that I think that most people are just going to be immediately supportive of.
Oh, I
they
think
have to
it
learn
takes-
it.
oh,
they
yeah.
gotta learn it, and so it's a growth opportunity. But I forget where I was going with that.
But the spouse has to be supportive.
Yeah.
'Cause
Well-
I've seen spouses not supportive, and the agents end up they're not successful because they can't do the activities necessary to be successful. And the do not disturb thing has 100% changed my life, because if I don't know about the call, then it won't bother me. And again, when I do see it and I reach out to them the next morning, I have learned, even when I see it now, it's like I don't stress about it, because when I reach out to them the next morning, it's again, most problems aren't going to be fixed late at night when you are with your family. Like,
and sometimes they resolve themselves because it was just emotional and they needed to go to sleep.
Right. Really, the only thing I can think of is literally Casey's situation where they have to get into a house, and they have to get in that night. They're going out of town the next day, or like the house is in multiple offers, which we're not in a market right now where houses are flying off the market. So you're really not risking much by waiting an extra day. Or you could even send the agent an email, that the listing agent, and say, hey, or schedule a showing. And most listing agents, if they get an offer and they have showing scheduled, they notify you. Like a good listing agent's going to notify you, hey, we got an offer. I just want to let you know. So now you're prepared on what your activity is going to look like, and you can set the expectation to that client, like, hey, there's an offer on here, so if we like it, we're going to have to act fast. So,
yeah, because real estate is so fast. And I was talking to a new agent yesterday because they hurried up and did some stuff because they had people asking them questions and they got nervous. And I said, hey, the best thing to do in real estate, especially when you're new, is just buy yourself time. And that can even go into the future as you start doing more and more deals. As soon as you understand time and people's emotions, then I feel like you can control quite a bit more.
You really can.
Yeah, you got to learn to be efficient. And that helps questions. With the balance. And something that even last night, I got a text message about one of my listings, and this is happening a lot for houses that are sitting over 60 days. You get all these investors wanting to lease to own, so they want to get a good interest rate, and so they're going to lease to own it and then rent it out. And so I get all these messages like, hey, we want to lease to own this. What are your terms? And so I have some loose terms that my seller said they would agree to in the beginning. And this person's wanting mortgage statements and this and that, and wants to know the payoff and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, have you seen the house yet? And they're like, no, we were wanting to come to an agreement before you do that. I go, I'm not doing it. I'm not going to sit here and go back and forth with you, request all this documentation so you can go see the house and say, never mind.
Yeah.
And so I've learned that, and that saved me tons of times. Same with working with investors, find me a good deal. And then you're on it's just too much. And I will say about the work and life balance, when you are first starting out, it's going to be hard to get that. So you need to give yourself some time to go heavy and have that understanding from your family that you are going to go heavy, because that's how you learn. And I would say this, go heavy until your bills are paid. Because if your bills aren't paid, your family is going to suffer, hardship and maybe move in with your parents or worse.
Brittany and I sat down before I went into this full time, and we made a really good plan. And we had a lot of conversations of, I'm going to have to talk to a lot of different people and make lots of friends and do all of this. And I told her, right at the beginning, I was like, I want you to be able to feel safe and let me know when it's too much. And then if it's too much, then we'll figure it out. We'll take a weekend off. And that alone has helped so much. She hardly ever does it, but it was probably a few months ago that she did it again. And she was finally like, hey, it's affecting me. And I was like, okay. So we spent the whole weekend together. And that's huge. And then eventually the do not disturb came into play, because I still want to be on my phone, right? Hanging out with friends and looking at hobbies. I don't want to just only look at my phone for real estate only. But if I'm on TikTok and then I have text messages coming through, I got to read those text messages, and then it creates a whole bunch of stress. So that do not disturb really, really helped.
Yeah, I highly, highly, highly encourage all agents to set up their do not disturb for a certain time, whatever works for your schedule. Because not everybody has. There's a ton of options. You can even allow certain people to come through without the do not disturb affecting them. Like the do not disturb does not affect my spouse. Anytime she calls, it'll come through. So use it. Figure out what you're about, because not everyone has families in the same schedule, and
it's
different for everybody. But set your schedule schedule and set your do not
1,
disturb.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7, and you can create your own. Looks like there's 7 already, like preset do not disturbs.
What?
That you can completely edit and change. So like I have a do not disturb, but Jennifer Hubbard that I do all my deals with, she can come through when I have do not disturb. Curtis can come through because those are important ones. But I'll also have a personal one. You don't call me all the time, Casey.
No, that's cool. That's cool.
But then I'll have a personal one where Jennifer and Curtis don't come through. And I'll do that like early. I only do that super early in the morning so I can still have my morning routine or whatever and move on. But there's one that Jennifer and I both just set up for while we go on vacation. So if somebody messages either one of us, it has like a nice fancy little message and it basically says call Jennifer or call Brooke. So it makes it super nice. I can still talk to my friends, my family, all the important people while I'm on vacation. But then everyone else that's real estate is just shut off.
My phone just stays on silent. That's my do not disturb. Because I mean, my phone is in my hand. I don't know, like 6 to 8 hours a day. My phone says,
Yeah.
like I'm reachable. And so if I put my phone, on my nightstand, or if I'm like working outside and I set it on my windowsill while I'm like hanging out up there, like that's my do not disturb time.
But it's like crazy.
I just walked away from it.
But I mean, I agree. Like I've created the habit now that I have do not disturb, where like I know it's like after 7:30, I just don't even touch my phone anymore.
But the phone doesn't even light up when it's on do not disturb. Like,
yeah, and it's like
anything.
Well, and also still like I want to go Google something or look up a recipe,
right.
or we're talking about something, or we need to pull up our budget or
Sure.
whatever, and I need to look at my phone, but I have such a bad habit of I'll see how many text messages are there, and I freaking hate having those red bubbles increase. And I don't want to see any of that. It makes it nice because it makes all of the notifications go away.
Disappear. And
So-
I think it's super. I just highly recommend it.
We should get a sponsorship on Do Not Disturb from Apple.
I know,
They're
right?
not going to sponsor you for anything.
No, they're not. Not unless our
You already buy their
followers start
products.
following.
Yeah, that's right.
How do you guys handle with like your spouses, and because you guys have kids, so like, and I feel like, and you guys have young kids too. So
The challenge is like I'll come home and it'll be like 5 o'clock or something like that. And keep in mind, sometimes I come home at 2. My day usually consists of like, I work, I'm on my computer working unless I'm showing her at an appointment, at least until like 1 or 2. And then I usually take a couple hours off from that, unless again, I'm out showing houses or something. And, I usually I like to greet Theo when he gets home from school, or go get him from school. And then after we eat and dinner time, then I'll typically get back on my computer and respond and set up showings. And
how do you like communicate and talk to them about it?
This is where I was going with that. So the challenge comes, like, for example, one night, Claire lets all my neighbor kids come over because she's really nice.
Oh yeah.
And so there's like 10 kids in my house when I come home almost every day. And that's very stressful to me.
That's when you need to go show houses.
That's when I go to my studio. So anyway, so she finally asked them all to leave so she can start getting dinner ready. Well, she's like boiling inside with stress because they stressed her out.
Yeah.
And of course, she's not going to take it out on them, so she's waiting on me. And I sit down at the kitchen table and I need to put an offer together. And so I'm doing that, and instead of her being like, "Hey Casey, would you mind like doing this specific thing? Like, would you mind stirring the macaroni?"
Yeah.
She blows up and goes, "Can you help or like do anything?" And it's like kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
So it's like you can deal with all these kids and be super patient with them. The second I sit down to make us money, you think I'm doing nothing and you're upset.
Yeah.
That, to me, that's what makes it challenging, is like when we were talking earlier before the podcast, it's like those little things that like aren't a big deal, but that was the thing that like set you off and triggered you.
Yeah.
Like that's what happens at home. And that's what we do to our spouses.
Yeah.
Well, so-
Brittany does
that's
that
the challenge.
too. But then I'm like, oh, you're stressed. I'm like, okay, what can I like? Why are you stressed out?
Well, once she snaps at me, I get angry.
Fair.
So it's like, because it's like, oh, I'm sorry. Like you just all of a sudden expected that I should have done something that I had no idea you were stressed about.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you make dinner every night. Like, I don't see what the problem was. Like, she wasn't really showing signs of distress more than normal.
Right.
I think that you know, I'm not a therapist. I just think that the answer to that would be, and obviously when your emotions are involved, it's hard to remember what you should do in those situations. But
When you've been married for a long time,
yeah,
too.
I mean, but communication, like April and I have learned that communication is just like the key to everything.
It is.
And how you communicate.
Yes.
And that your partner doesn't know what you need when you need it at all times, and you don't always know what your partner's intentions are with. So we always try to ask. And so like if she were to ask like, hey, are you doing something with work on your computer? Do you think you have time to help me with this? Asking those questions, because then you can say, I'm writing an offer and I don't have time. Or you can make an assessment like, this offer doesn't have to get out by 6:30. I'm just trying to get it checked off my list.
So we can then spend time together.
Yeah. So you can then say, I have to write this offer. I can help you, but it might cut into our time together a little bit later. What would you rather me do? And so much easier said than done, because when you're in your emotions, it's really hard to be calm and ask those questions. But something that I have done is it goes back to boundaries, and I just think boundaries are so important. And I learned this actually from prison ministry, because one of the actual courses that we go through, it's like a 10-week course on boundaries and the importance of boundaries. Because when the people, like the guys that are in prison, they have to have boundaries like nobody's business, because they have a cellmate, and it's a tiny room, and I mean it's just little things like, you know, like when someone brushes their teeth can set them off. You know? And so it's such an important class, but when I went through it, I was like, man, this applies to life, to everything. And so I set the boundaries, and I communicate that with my wife, and I say, listen, here are our goals. Here's what I want for our kids. Here's what I want for us. And so here's the hours that I have to work in a day. And this is my career. Like, yes, I'm self-employed, but that does not mean that I can go and come and go as I please, when I please, and just every time that we want to. Like, I have a responsibility to this job, and that responsibility lies within these hours. And then I have a responsibility to my family within these hours. Mm-hmm. And work cannot interfere with that, except for maybe that 1% of the time. And if I get on my phone and I'm doing work during that time that's supposed to be family, and she wants to get on to me for it, then I look at, I'm like, that's on me. That's that I broke the boundary, so that's my fault. And I take accountability for that, because I'm not perfect with it, and you know, and I want to get things, you know, off my checklist and out of my head. But because I have set a schedule and I know when I'm going to be able to do certain activities, it doesn't bother me anymore when my to-do list piles up. Yeah. I'm always behind. Like I you know, we talked about how we're always like a week behind.
Yeah.
Literally, I am always 1 to 2 weeks behind. And so now my to-do list and my checklist piling up, it actually has no impact on how I feel, on like being stressed, getting things done, because I know I'm going to have time to work on it at these times of the day. And then prioritizing is important. You have to have your list of things you got to do, and you got to prioritize what is important.
Remember when I told you about my favorite client?
Yeah.
If you guys are watching, you can read my lips. But
it was my favorite client first that I graciously passed off.
It was a FISBO.
We
did together,
FISBO.
Yeah. And so
it was the second time I went back to it, though, and I brought you with.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I set a boundary with her, and it did not go well for either one of us. More her. I told her, because she called me at 3:30 on a Sunday afternoon saying, I need to go see this now. I said, well, I'm in the middle of an open house, and I promised Theo I would go on a bike ride with him when I got home from work. And I have plans. I can do it tomorrow. Well, she ends up calling a family relative that's a brand new realtor, and the offer did not go well. And then I ended up writing the offer for her, and then she ended up backing out.
Oh my gosh.
And it's like, and so I knew in that moment that was one I was not going to break. Like I had plans, and she wasn't.
Well, you know how she is too.
Well, I also think people forget
Yeah.
that like there's always more clients. There's always more
clients.
leads.
Well,
There's always
but the
more
problem
money.
The problem is with that, Brooke, is that people don't want to go meet those new people.
I know.
So they get stuck on that one buyer.
But then,
Yes.
but then that's a
Which is
then
a
that's
big problem.
But that's a bad
problem.
mindset.
Yeah, it is.
Terrible
It is.
mindset.
Because it's at the end of the day, we're building a damn business.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm gonna cuss on this one because it is like I don't want to have to go meet those new people all the time, but I want to work with good people and do well for those. So then later on, those are the ones referring me and calling me all the time.
Right.
If someone's not going to be like loyal to you, then they're not the customer that you want to have long term. Anyways, like we should be going after customers that are going to be referral partners. They're going to give us repeat business, and they're going to refer us to their friends and family, to their network, and people that are going. If you don't sacrifice your family time for them, and they just say that and then they leave you for that, then they really weren't a good client to begin with.
Well,
And it always does. It's every time you lose a deal or a client, your emotions are going to get the best of you. You're
Oh,
gonna,
yeah.
Sucks.
You're gonna feel it.
Because
But
it's not only money you're losing, it's also like that punch in the gut
it
Yeah.
is.
of
But
character and
But if you're not character, because that's not.
Well, it could
that's
be
not
their
that's not
character.
yeah, it's their character. But you have to remind ourselves, like what Brooke just said, you can always go make another paycheck. There's always more business out there. And if you are showing up every single day and doing the activity, you will never be at a loss for customers.
I use it as a
promise
motivation.
you that.
Like if someone doesn't want to, or they want to do something silly or whatever, man, it just pisses me off,
know.
and it just fuels me for whatever reason, and I want to go find more people.
But when you're like at a loss, when you don't have a pipeline full and you lose someone, then the only person you need to be looking at is yourself. Like if you're gonna keep a boundary and not show a house or do something because it's your family time and you lose that person, then you have to make sure that you're keeping the boundaries for prospecting time. So don't keep the boundary for your family time if you're not going to keep the boundary for your prospecting time. If you do both, you will never be at a loss. Your pipeline will never not be full. I guarantee it. And if it isn't full, it's because you skipped some days and decided to, do more time with your family, decided to go watch a movie in the middle of the day, decided to go take a nap, decided to, whatever it is, you have to look at yourself. If your business isn't where you want it to be, a lot of times it's a self-accountability thing. You missed some days, and it's not that you can't. Everyone needs to take vacation and miss days. Just don't make it a habit. So you got to stick to your boundaries
All of them.
correct.
at all times.
Something along kind of going back a little bit of what we were talking about, but some kind of it's a habit that Brittany and I both kind of created, like just I don't know, just out of random, but now that we're talking about it, I'm appreciative of it because like if there is those nights or like I do have to come home late and I'm like, hey, we got to follow up with this person or write a contract or whatever. Like Brittany and I both do it because she's also like she has a corporate job and then she's also trying to build her own business on the side, and so sometimes she has to work late at night. And we've always just like we just started texting each other, hey, I have to work late tonight, and then the other one's like, okay, sweet, because then now I can work late too.
Yeah, I do like that when that happens. Yeah.
And it doesn't happen all the time. Like we're not making it a bad habit, but we do know like like when we go home is becoming more sacred or whatever
Yeah.
to separate, because that time is important. But I don't know, we just really love it.
April will sometimes, she'll be like, okay, I have my book club tonight, and the kids are taken care of, so you can stay late. She knows that I have a lot to do, so she knows it fills up my bucket when it's like you can stay late at work and get stuff
That's
done.
huge.
And so she'll give me a heads up. Something that we do that has been a game changer is every Sunday night after we put the kids to bed, we both sit down before we hang out, do anything. It's the first thing we do is we both get our calendars out and we look at the week ahead, and we say, okay, what do you have going on? What do I have going on? What can I do for you that would make your week easier?
Oh my gosh!
Here's what you can do for me. I have this going on. I need you to help get the kids from school on this day. I have a prescription I need to be picked up. It's been a game changer.
That we just started doing that because now we're doing like a budgeting and we have a coach and all that. And then I've started seeing some more videos about it, about how everyone has like a family, basically meeting. And it's like every Sunday you can make it fun. You can go out to like a breakfast place and go to brunch, but that's where you basically talk about all that stuff that you just said. You talk about your budgets. What do you got to pay for? What's coming up this week? What do we need to do? What are our plans? Yada, yada. And then I saw another video, and it sounds kind of terrible, but when you really think about it, it actually sounds good. And it was this couple, and they are like, we run our relationship like a business.
Yep.
And as far as like, I know.
I'm just kidding.
Well, some people that don't run businesses, they're like, why on earth? Why would you ever?
Yeah.
Why would you want a corporate marriage? You know.
Yeah. Or when go. Sorry.
The wife's always the CEO, right?
But it made sense, and they talked about how they had their family meetings, and like they basically just made sure that they had time for all those things we were talking about. And so it's like time blocking and just putting certain things as priority in your relationship. And I was like, man, that makes a lot of sense. I was like, we need to run a relationship like a business, babe. And she just looked at me.
She's like, here you go again.
I was like,
that's
whatever.
The greatest thing. Whenever
this business stuff is really getting to you.
yeah, when entrepreneurs
quit opening up so many businesses.
Yeah.
When entrepreneurs married to like just a normal person, it's like every time you open your mouth, they're like, really again, and you're like, yeah, like this is the way of life here.
There's totally, I mean, because like that's like they're like my family is like starting to come around to it a little bit more because they didn't understand. They just have the corporate world, and I remember one conversation, and I was like just venting, and I was stressing about something. I have no idea what it was, and Brittany just like looked at me, and she was listening, and she was just like, I hope you do remember that like I'm not there yet, and I haven't ran my own business, so I'm trying to listen, but I don't understand. And I was like, good point.
Yeah, I'm like the dreamer in the relationship, and Claire's the realist is what she likes to say.
Yeah.
That's also practical, but that's also interchangeable with pessimist, which I'm a pessimist too, but I've really, really worked on it
You're a
over the
pessimist
years.
dreamer. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That is interesting.
Well, I'm not as pessimist like I used to be. I've worked on it a lot. But there'd be things like before I got into real estate, I'd be sitting on the couch and I'd say, I'm going to start a guttering business. And she'd be like, what? I'm like, yeah, I found a gutter machine on sale for $3,000 online. I was like, I think I'm going to do it. And then, like the next day I was like, you know what I think I'm going to do?
Actually, a bowling league.
Yeah. Like, it was always something
Chess
different,
club.
but it's like I had to flesh out all those ideas and I had to talk about them out loud to find the one thing that was going to work, and that ended up being real estate.
Oh yeah, there's always a thing to it.
But now, what's great about real estate, what people have to learn is like if you can master real estate, you can literally go do anything.
Oh gosh,
because you understand you deal with one of the biggest ticketed items, one of the most negotiated items, and then you have to figure out
emotional
emotions, you have to figure out where to get the clients, all the boundaries. So tomorrow, if I wanted to go start a guttering business, I would be successful in it.
I would think I'd start something like, I don't know, like stuffed fluffy cats or something, and that's what I would sell.
That's weird.
I know, but that's so much better than putting gutters on a house.
I looked at Lauren to see what her reaction was.
Well, that's why we were talking about cats earlier, and it made me think of it.
Okay, yeah.
We'll make a special one, Doja Cat.
There you go.
It'll be a limited edition.
Hey, have you guys heard of these?
Angry cat.
Have you guys heard of? I think they're called jelly cats. You know what jelly cats are?
Lauren
Okay.
knows, I have no idea.
So I watched this video and I was like so intrigued. And then when I was in Europe, I was with my cousin that makes good money. So her kids are spoiled. And she was like, we have to go to this specific place and get this jelly cats because they have a jelly cat pop up. And I was like, okay. And we get there and it's like a whole experience. It's so cheesy. It's the cheesiest thing I think I've ever seen.
I thought you said it was jelly.
But I love it. Huh?
I thought it was jelly. Now it's cheesy.
Those are cheesy cats or jelly cats?
They're jelly cats, but I'm
Okay.
saying it's just cheesy how people are making this money. And so it's like they'll have like a bakery. And so the one we went to, because we were in Paris, and they had, oh gosh, what are those little, I can't think of the little desserts that they're always famous for.
Macaroons?
Yes, macaroons. And they had
That's
little
nice.
macaroons, and then they had like these other things, and they're just these little stuffed animals with like little faces and eyes. Like they're not that cool, but it's a whole
Is it just like a gummy,
experience.
basically?
No,
Like-
it's just a little stuffed toy, and then it's a whole experience. And
You
then
know-
they like do the jazzy thing, and then they like
This is
say
so
goofy
stupid
stuff, and then they wrap up the macaroon and like give it to you in these fancy boxes, and they're so expensive.
And this is what's crazy. This is the craziest thing because, like, Hobby Lobby is another example of the things you're talking about. You go into that store, there's not one thing in that store that anybody needs. Like,
Oh, yeah.
it doesn't meet a need. It just basically people just clutter their house with that shit. And
I
it's
love
a
Hobby
billion dollar company. But then people come to us and go, "Oh, the interest rates are high. I think I should wait." It's like, how much money did you just spend on those little jelly cats? You know, and it's like
Hobby Lobby has good sales though.
Okay, that was a
But-
need. Those jelly
But no,
cats.
those jelly cats, like my cousin got like the 3 macaroons and like one thing, and it like she probably spent like $200.
God.
And they're
Someone's
like
gotta
this
say it.
big.
Someone's got to say it.
What?
We now need a sponsorship from Hobby Lobby
Or jelly cats.
or jelly cats.
You can do a jelly cat
Hobby
pop up
Lobby would work
at
for our line of work.
I mean,
it would.
seriously.
Yeah, it
If
would.
every
They
one
get
of our
little
clients could
houses.
get, are you listening, Mr. Hobby, Mr. Lobby? We want $100 for every closing we have,
Okay.
and we'll mention your name again.
Never again though.
Isn't that how it works?
You know, I was thinking because we really have just
No,
like
they just
joked
sponsor an
every single episode about getting a sponsorship.
One
I
of
was
these
like,
days.
maybe one day we really will.
No, we will.
I kind of started that because my friend did a podcast and they did that, and it's just like every once in a while they'd stop and say, "This episode is brought to you by Hobby Lobby," and then they'd go back
And
they'd
jelly
go back to
cats.
the-
Maybe people will actually believe it, and that's what.
Yeah,
big time.
right.
I'm going to find the
Right.
video
Subscribe.
of jelly cats and
I like
show
Hobby
you
Lobby.
guys.
Subscribe.
Yeah.
This episode is still brought to you.
Anyways, well, you guys have anything else that you want to touch on with this?
Like
you guys-
balance is hard.
Yeah, if you guys, if we didn't touch on anything and you have questions on how we handle things or what we would recommend, ask us in the comments.
Find me on social media and just send me a DM.
Yeah, and if we need to talk to your partners about supporting you,
Well, when something that I don't do all the time, but when I have a new agent or really just any agent coming to me and they say they want to come over here, we always talk about the spouse.
Yes.
And
or include them in the appointment.
yes,
is best.
and
Same with
I
listing
always.
appointments.
Oh gosh, yes. But I always tell them like, hey, like if you need me to also talk to your spouse, like I'm totally willing to. Desiree and her wife, they did that. And it was so helpful.
Well, and you might get them licensed too. You never know what'll happen.
100%.
Well, I think it's really important. Even in a listing appointment, there's one couple in particular I remember going to an appointment, and I was given this advice before of like make sure that both parties are listening and hearing everything. And she gets up because they've got a kid that they didn't know how to discipline, so he ran the household, and he was screaming and running around, breaking stuff. So she's just begging him to not, and like running around chasing him. And then that whole listing, she punished me, like with I thought, and it's like you didn't hear anything we talked about.
Yeah.
Like we discussed this. It was awful. Anyways,
Those are always the worst.
yeah, it was bad. So yeah, make sure that everyone's included and is on the same page.
Oh yeah, and it's not going to be perfect, but I mean, just having the conversation, because like I'm sure you guys can say it too. And Casey, I mean, you talked about a story, but like we're still not perfect, or we forget things, and that's It's why communication comes into play later.
Right.
That's all, folks.
Okay. Well, as we come to an end, I'd like to thank you for listening and participating in our podcast. I'm your co-host, Casey Tudor. Oh, don't forget to, I knew I was forgetting something. Don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell for future notifications. I'm Casey Tudor. This is Curtis Haddock.
Forgot
And
rather too, but that's okay. You just disappointed everyone.
that's a big responsibility.
That's okay.
Or you didn't let him say my name all cool like, and now everyone's
I
disappointed.
did that on purpose too.
Probably.
Because I wanted to double disappoint. Our cut.
Well, now I'm trying to think of a would you rather not delay the ending.
Yeah, it's okay. Would you rather us end it now or keep going?
End it now.
There we go.
And Brooke Massey.